Welcome to our Bushuddle podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Cuthbert, Creative Director at Baker Creative. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it. Berlon Hamilton became Director of Supplier Diversity for Cleveland Clinic in 2017. His achievements in supplier diversity inclusion led to Cleveland Clinic's being recognized by DiversityBusiness.com and the U.S. Department of Commerce. Berlon received a bachelor's degree and an MBA from Jackson State University. He is a certified professional in supplier diversity and obtained a certificate in supply chain management from DePaul University. Berlon is included among the top corporate supplier diversity professionals by Diversity MBA magazine, Women's Enterprise USA, Diversity Plus, DiversityBusiness.com, and Minority Business News. Welcome.
We're so glad to have you. And, I was kind of curious, how did you get into this business to begin with?
Well, I got into procurement was my background out of graduate school. I started off as a retail buyer for Saks Fifth Avenue, and I kind of learned the ropes of procurement as a buyer. I was in that role for about 3 years before I took a position at AT&T. And throughout my tenure at AT&T, I was there for about 12 years. And about 2 years into my 12-year career at AT&T, I got the wonderful opportunity to go into supplier diversity. And it was really based on my background in sourcing and supply chain. The organization felt that it would be a great fit for someone that had a background in procurement to be able to help minority businesses navigate the procurement process for AT&T. It was really passionate, something that was really passionate for me growing up in a family with entrepreneurs myself. My parents were entrepreneurs, and my background in my college career and my graduate career was in business administration and with a specific focus on entrepreneurship. So I had a real passion and interest of helping businesses thrive that didn't get an opportunity to thrive on their own and that really didn't have a voice in the corporate world. So stayed at AT&T for about 12 years and had a wonderful opportunity to go over to Hospira, where I ran supplier diversity for a pharmaceutical company. They actually spun off of Abbott Laboratories, and they were starting up a supplier diversity department and wanted to have someone that had a little bit of background in supplier diversity that could really jumpstart their program. And that's really how I got my start in supplier diversity. And I've been in the supplier diversity space now and procurement for about 24 years now, but it's something that's very passionate in my heart. And I've been with the clinic now for about 4.5 years. So it's something that I'm very passionate about and love to see diverse businesses thrive and flourish and be able to get an opportunity within the organization in the corporate space.
So Berlon, I was curious, what is it about supplier diversity that you're so passionate about? What is that piece that just makes you kind of go, you know what, I got to do this?
Yeah, for me, it's seeing diverse businesses thrive and grow, and being able to see a small business that starts off maybe out of their homes and be able to grow their business over time. And I've seen throughout my career a lot of successful businesses that have started off small and now are multi-million-dollar businesses. So being able to see those businesses hire within the communities that they serve, hiring people of color is something that's passionate for me. Growing up in the city of Chicago, I got a chance to see firsthand, how people in the urban cities that didn't have jobs and didn't have an opportunity to work, and a lot of those individuals got caught up in the system, didn't really thrive or do well. So, you know, I I'm very passionate to say, to whom much is given, much is required. So I've been blessed with an opportunity to thrive in business, and being able to go to college. My parents made the sacrifice for me to do that. And going back to the city of Chicago, when I was going back and forth through my college career and seeing some of those individuals that I graduated high school weren't doing as well. So, for me, it's a personal interest of mine to see uh, businesses in urban cities being able to give back to the communities in which they serve. And for me, although sometimes people don't know quite what I do in corporate America, but it's a privilege for me to be able to represent some large major institutions, to show that these institutions care about the communities that they serve, and me being a conduit for that and being able to help those businesses is something that really is passionate for me. And that's why I do what I do, and I take it very serious. And I'm always looking for ways to grow and develop small businesses that may not necessarily have the opportunities to thrive and develop on their own. Many corporations and businesses have a tendency to do business with those organizations that they build relationships, personal relationships with. And that's at a disadvantage to those smaller, diverse businesses that are trying to really get a fair opportunity to really highlight what they can do. And I know so well that people of color and minority and diverse businesses are just looking for an opportunity. And in most cases, they just don't get that opportunity. And those that do have an opportunity to get in front and help pave the way for other diverse businesses and people of color to make progress, it's really upon us to do our due diligence and do our part. So for me, it's something that I take personally and professionally, to see those organizations thrive and grow. And when I see those organizations grow, although it's not my business, I take it personal, because to me, their success is my success. And I always tell my wife and my family, if I can't go to be that CEO, I like to see the next CEO that's a small entrepreneur just be just as successful as some of these Fortune 500 companies are. And I've seen that to take place firsthand, where a lot of individuals that I've gone to school with have worked for smaller, diverse businesses, now are part of the C-suite and are doing very well. So, I take great pride in seeing that happen and occur in the communities.
I think that's awesome. The thing that's so funny is that we have that same exact quote on our wall in our workspace from Spider-Man. I mean, I totally dig that, because it's totally true. If you can make a change with your brand and your role, one person can drive a lot of change, and especially with your passion. And I commend you for that. That's awesome. And
Thank you.
so, working with all these small businesses and medium-sized businesses and all kinds of different sizes, what's like the top three things that you think is the biggest mistake you see them doing?
Well, I think with any business, getting that first opportunity is critical, and being passionate about what you're doing is important. But when you navigate big organizations, from my experience, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes, in my role, I try to educate diverse suppliers that, it doesn't happen overnight. Some of the opportunities are in place for 2 to 3 years, and they can be longer. And we know people in organizations have a tendency to do business with people that they build personable relationships with. So my role and my goal is to build a bridge for those diverse businesses to get their foot in the door, to build those personal relationships with the decision makers. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily come as quickly as a lot of diverse businesses would like for it to come. And a lot of times, the frustration sets in, and I can tell that the frustration sets in. I put myself in the position of an entrepreneur, where entrepreneurs, you only get the business when you go out and earn it, and it's kind of like a hunter's mentality. You don't eat if you don't get it, if you don't kill anything, if you don't go out and hunt and bring anything home, you don't eat. So I understand the passion as it relates to that, but then I try to build that bridge to show that there's one element of being passionate about what you're doing, and then there's the politics of corporate America that you have to follow in order to build that bridge correctly. And a lot of times I see diverse businesses, in some cases, they are so passionate about what they do, they seem to in some cases be overbearing and too pushy, and sometimes that scares the people within the organization off. And I don't, and I'm not, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's some of the things that I see that happens when suppliers are too persistent. It can come off to people internally as being not patient and not following the process that's been laid out. So for me, I have to be able to explain that to a lot of businesses, that there is a process, and I do understand the passion that these businesses have, but I also have to try to kind of tamper that down a bit to kind of set up realistic expectations on the process that has to be followed and taken. So those are the biggest challenges that I face in my role in working with suppliers, because I do, again, understand the passion and the commitment that vendors have, but then there's also a protocol within corporate America that has to be followed, and you have to try to be able to navigate both sides of the equation, so to speak.
Okay. So, how has the brand addressed disparity in the communities that they serve? What does that look like at Cleveland Clinic?
Yeah, for us, we understand that health doesn't just stop with the physical health of the patient. Health also starts and begins with economic health, being able to get sustainable employment and keep it, having wages that can sustain your health, having people in the communities that we serve or being able to get access to food and healthy food options and choices. And we know that all comes with jobs and bringing fair and equitable wages to the community so they can keep themselves healthy. So for us, it's about, we have our care. We have 4 cornerstones of care that you'll see our senior leaders talking about, and our CEO and chairman, Dr. Mihaljevic, talks about 4 cornerstones of care: care for the organization, care for the patient, care for the caregiver, and care for the community. So when I do the work that I do, I always talk with leaders in the organization about those four cornerstones of care. And our care for our organization just doesn't stop with just ourselves or the patient. It also encompasses the care for the community in which we serve. So you really have to be able to resonate with anyone in the organization that it has to be centered around the mission in order to do the work successfully. If the work that you do is not centered around the mission of the organization, then your job becomes very difficult to do. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to be with an organization that really understands it and really centers it around the mission of what we're here to do. And it's very important. And as a result of that, I've been able to get some pretty good success and some wins. There's always more to do. I'm not saying we're where we want to be, but it's great to be in an organization that understands that care for the community is very important.
So understanding that the last year and a half has been just crazy for everyone, how has patient care changed in the past year and a half? The patient experience.
Yeah, well, like everyone, we're all faced with this very unprecedented times with the pandemic, and that care has been centered around making sure patients are healthy and able to fight and beat this pandemic. As an organization, we canceled some of our elective surgeries early on to really focus on the care for patients that were contracting COVID. So that has been the number one priority of the organization. As a result of that, there have been a lot of budget tightening of the organization. I can say that the organization was very focused to make sure that the care for the caregiver was in place. Our organization did not have to lay anyone off as a result of the budget cutting and the budget tightening that we did as an organization. And the senior leadership really wanted to keep the organization in place and intact. And that was only as a result of the budget cutting that we implemented as an organization. As a result, some of our large capital investments and building and construction was suspended, but that really didn't deter our focus on the community as it relates to investing in the community. We looked at investing in the community in different ways. We invested in education and development and training and helping to educate our community on what's out there to keep them healthy. And we also work with our suppliers to help us with that education and development. We started really focusing on how do we educate and develop suppliers through our mentor protege programs and really beefing that up a bit. So really trying to make sure that when we get out on the other end of this pandemic, that the suppliers are more sustainable and have that needed knowledge share they need in order to be successful with our organization. Because that's one thing that's critical for healthcare and for any organization. Organizations have a tendency to be risk adverse. They don't want to do business with businesses that don't know the industry or know their industry. So we develop ways through our partnership with some of our larger suppliers to get that industry experience to our smaller suppliers that don't have it. And we beef that up as a way to say, hey, when we come out on the other side of this will help you learn our industry. It puts you in a better position, not only for the clinic, but for other healthcare organizations that are doing this work that, again, that are risk adverse and look for suppliers that have some type of healthcare experience in order to do business with them. So that's the way we've approached this pandemic. We looked at it as a way to retool and re-educate and refocus our commitment on making sure our suppliers are stronger on the other side of this.
Are there any other initiatives happening for the diversity space at the hospital?
You know, in light of all the things that have transpired, again, with the pandemic and then the George Floyd incident that happened last year, we know that disparity is real, and our leaders, senior leaders, are really focused on hiring more people of color in our organization. So there's really been a strong focus on figuring how as an organization we can be more accountable for hiring more people of color within our organization, as well as extending that commitment to our suppliers. You know, we if you are a vendor or a supplier to the clinic, we ask that you embrace our goals and objectives, and DE&I is a very important objective to the organization. So we ask our vendors to be a part of this, be a partner in this with us. So we've asked them to help us hire locally in our communities in which we serve. So, you know, that's another thing that the organization is really committed to doing. And again, I'm proud to be a part of it because that's important to me personally. And we're looking at, again, how do we grow our diverse businesses of size and scale so they can in turn hire local people as well. And it's an ecosystem that continues to grow and grow.
What do you think the biggest misconception is about diversity?
Well, you know, some of the myths out there and the things that people have built stereotypes on, you know, they do exist. You know, as it relates to diverse suppliers, people feel automatically if you're a diverse supplier, your prices are going to be high right out the gate, and that's not necessarily true. You know, and people feel that, you know, if you're diverse, you're going to get a less quality in your work or your material or the type of work that comes out of individuals of color, and that's not the case. So just tearing down those silos is something that we do a lot within the organization, and those are some of the misconceptions that I hear from time to time from just people in general.
Yes, I agree with that. Sometimes people have a misunderstanding about how the whole process works. And, you know, a lot of times it's not a handout, it's a hand up, it's an opportunity just for an even playing field. And if you're not been participating in that, you don't understand that from the outside.
Right. And you have to be intentional, you know, if you don't give a person an opportunity and you're not intentional about what you're doing, how will that person learn? How will that supplier learn? How will that individual learn when they don't have the opportunity to learn? Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important. And when you see people that are given an opportunity, it had to be given somewhere. Someone had to take that first initial opportunity, give that person that first shot at it, and they build from there, and they are groomed and developed and nurtured to be who they are today. And so many times in communities of color, we lack that intentionality. We don't get the opportunity to be groomed or developed. And the first thing people say, well, they're not qualified, or they lack the experience. And, you know, that to me is an excuse that people have a tendency to make just to say the diverse supplier wasn't qualified or the individual wasn't qualified because they lacked the opportunity. But then when you look around, all around you, you see people coming behind you that get an opportunity. And sometimes you pause and you think, well, what was different with that individual? Why did they get an opportunity and why didn't I? Why did that supplier get an opportunity and why didn't I? Why didn't they? And, I'm always looking at people's bios and people's experience. I never wanted anybody to give me a handout, and most diverse businesses don't want a handout. They want to earn it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when I go to suppliers, diverse suppliers, and I ask them to get certified as a diverse supplier or a woman-owned or a minority-owned, believe it or not, you have a lot of suppliers that don't want to get certified because of that misconception. They're like, I don't want to be labeled as the diverse supplier or the minority supplier. I want to be labeled based on my ability to perform. Mm-hmm. And some of them look at the certification as being a hindrance, to be quite honest with you. And I understand, but we have to get around that as people, as an organization. We have to be more intentional about how we groom individuals and suppliers and the like.
I totally, absolutely agree. So with the breadth of experience that you have and all these different organizations, what kind of legacy would you like to leave when it's all said and done?
Well, for me, I want people to look at me as a person that was passionate about what he did, was able to help a lot of businesses in the process, and were able to create jobs and opportunity for people that wouldn't have gotten an opportunity if my role hadn't existed. It's not about what you can do personally and the wealth that you create personally. Is about creating the wealth and opportunity for others. So for me, I want to be remembered as a person that has created opportunities for others, because those opportunities, those legacies will build and create that ecosystem that we've talked about. And people may not know what role or hand I had in it, but to be able to see the job unemployment rate decrease, and I had a hand in that, even though they don't know I exist, I feel that would make me, my legacy, I would say my legacy was fulfilled. And for me, that would give me a sense of accomplishment.
I think that's a wonderful thing. You couldn't ask for better than that. Well, thank you so much, Berlin. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and your advice, and it's been invaluable. And I know a lot of companies will take a lot away from that. So thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Anytime, Michelle. Take care.
Thank you.
If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit subscribe so you can get notified when new content comes out. Please share this with anyone who could be inspired by it, and feel free to post any questions so we can be inspired by new content. Thanks for listening. If you're interested in learning more, visit our website at bakercreative.co.